Esto es un podcast de Icónica Urbana.
Icónica Urbana no necesariamente concuerda con las opiniones aquí expresadas.
BiblioChisme.
BiblioChisme?
Yes, BiblioChisme. What are you reading?
I'm reading a book about the...
Hello, welcome to BiblioChisme. It's a very special episode today because
Woohoo!
woohoo. It is our 1-year anniversary today. Well, this week, yes. That was our producer, Anwar. Thank you so much for being here with us to celebrate. I'm Angela, by the way.
Hello, Angela, by the way. I'm Mao. Greetings.
Oh, yeah.
It's so beautiful to be tonight on this episode, which is our episode number 30 something. But being on air for 1 year, it's been a lovely thing.
It's been so much fun. The idea that, I, just thought this thing in March of 2021 and talked to you about it, and then it was a thing. And then it's been a thing for a year. It's amazing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's been a great journey. Have we talked with our friends, with our listeners, that when we were kids we used to do radio shows on a tape recorder?
I think we did in the first few shows. I think we might have. But yeah, it's like we knew our destiny to podcast together.
Yeah, that was lovely.
we would do it on a cassette player.
Yeah.
And we would record our own individual shows, and then we did a show together, and then we would be announcers to Chinese checkers games with our grandmother.
Yes.
Those were very heated.
They were very important sports being played.
I need to see if I still have the tapes, but I need to see if they still work. If I can digitize them. And we could listen to them and see what marvelous things we had to say when we were like 9 and 11 years old.
Oh boy.
So yeah, it's been an amazing adventure. My question for you today. Oh, and before I begin, there's fireworks going on all over the place, so you may hear those in celebration of our year of recording.
Yay.
Or maybe there's some holiday going on or something. And my dog is also here celebrating with us, so you might hear her as well. And my cat. So yeah, it's a party. So the sounds that you hear are part of the party. So my question to you is, what's been your favorite part of recording this podcast? So meta.
Seeing you every week to talk about books, it's been a great experience. And not only to talk, I mean, there have been weeks where we don't have a show, but we have a conversation going on about books as if we never talk about books.
Thank goodness we finally talked about books.
And we have a chat where we talk about books, as in all the chats that we have together with different people. We don't talk about books. Anyway, but the thing is that we've been able to have a conversation around books, reading, ideas, things, concerns, talk about authors, about race, about things that we should not be saying, things that we should say in a different way. it's been a really interesting process of learning, and also for me on a very how would you say, like a self-awareness note. It's been really great, really interesting to have a second show about books, about literature, and have a voice that it's my own voice, but at the same time talks differently. So it's been a great journey for learning and discovering things about the world and about myself.
Oh, that's a beautiful.
Yay! How about you?
I don't think I'll answer. Your answer was perfect. No,
No,
I'm just
you have
kidding.
to answer.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, like I have really enjoyed that piece. I do send you everything that I read as far as books that I complete. I mean, so if I start a book and I don't finish it, I don't send that to you. But I do send you everything else. And wait, so I was going to put the podcast on hold for a second, like we're talking on the phone. But it's been fun to just like explore what those books mean outside of just me sending you the title of a book. Like I've been able to have conversations about where I found that book, why I liked it, and we've had those conversations in the past, but it doesn't always happen, and this is a way for it to happen every week and to explore creatively with you. And you were my first creative partner in life ever, and so it's been very fun, like how we used to create stories in our heads, and now we get to figure out what we want to talk about and what we want to create in the world. So I love having a project with you, like personally with you, and I love having a project where I can hang out with my thoughts on books, which I obsess about constantly and have so much fun talking about.
That's really lovely. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
I have also learned a lot about um, things about how different the markets are in the US and in Mexico and in the UK, where the conversation has expanded because we we take things for granted regarding the book market or
Absolutely, yeah.
certain authors or certain things, and then we are discovering things all the time. Like, really, is that true in your country?
It's the truest sense of BiblioChisme. We just get together to talk and we find out things. And I love the surprise in it too. Like sometimes, we bring our surprises of like, oh, and then this author did this. No, it's just so fun. So yeah, it's just been a great adventure. It's been so amazing. And I think, um, I just love everything about it, and it just puts me in a great mood. It's a great way to end a Monday. You're just like tired, and you're like, it's 9 o'clock, you've had a full day, and then all of a sudden, I feel like I woke up again and I'm full of energy.
Yes, Mondays are tough, but
Yeah.
then there's BiblioChisme at night, and it's wonderful too to
Yes.
have this space. And also, what has been really interesting is, of course, we have David and Mohit and Male and Aubrey and Daniela who listen to this podcast, and they like it and they comment and they do things. Our close friends and Diana and also Sophie and Andrea, we have certain feedback from people we know, but then we have crazy people like Aldo, who makes beautiful memes every Monday night, and also Martin Mendez, who shares what we publish and comments what we ask about, and Musa de Colores, who sends things on Twitter and replies on Twitter. I think that it's really interesting to
It's
have.
beautiful, yeah, to have people, and it's super weird because it's like you're recording into the ephemera. Like we're just together here, we're just having a conversation, and it's surreal. Like I just went on a podcast that I'm a huge fan of, and I said, "Oh, I'm such a fan," and the head of the podcast was like, "You're real. People who listen to us are real," and it's true. It feels almost like you're just doing it in a closed off space, and when you find people who have listened to it who you don't know, that's incredible. But also sometimes I'll be like talking to a friend and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I love that episode." And I'm like, "You listened to the podcast?" Like I had no idea. They just don't tell me that they listen, but they listen. And so it's beautiful on so like you're connecting on so many levels, and seeing people who love to listen to stories about books is just so much fun.
Yes. Also, what I find really interesting, it's always interesting to ask other people, what are you reading? But then, like friends, you may know their taste and their obsessions. But then sometimes you get so many answers, and like the space widens. Like it's
I
a
love it.
never-ending story. There's
It
titles
is
and books. And
literally. And I love that that's a moment in time in that person's world. Like it's their inner world that you get to see a piece of in that moment. It's, it's not a constant. It goes away, but it's like asking someone how they're feeling. It's just a moment, and it could be a good or bad one. They could be like, "Oh, I'm reading this, I hate it," or "I'm reading this and it's changing my life." So it makes me so happy.
it's really nice. You
On
were going to say something.
on the happiness note, though, we are going to take a break. It's a weird thing to do, like right
Yay!
after saying we love this so much. We're not going to do it for 3 or 4 weeks, the rest of July. Uh, So, listeners, we're going to take a little break. We'll play some repeat episodes in case you missed some of our past episodes. But start thinking about what you want us to talk about when we come back. And you can send us messages, and then we can talk about a lot more when we come back.
Yes. We'll have a little break, very necessary break. Life gets complicated sometimes, and things have to be done. And we really care about this project, so we want to give it the right amount of effort, heart, and brains to it. So
And
we have
space.
to
Yeah.
we have to do a little break with the show. As Angela said, like there won't be a show in July, new shows, but you can keep listening to Icónica Urbana. There's always good podcasts, good music, and you can also, for example, Mondays after BiblioChisme, our dearest Anwar Ricardo has this wonderful show about music, and you can send Anwar suggestions on songs that you would like to listen for the night. So it's a great way to finish the Monday, to finish the week. Like
Imagine you're done. It's Monday. I'm done.
it's Monday. I'm coming next Monday. but it's a great way of finishing the week, like listening to different things and um, listening to different ideas and voices, and I think that's a beautiful thing that you can do. And there's a lot of new things going on Icónica Urbana, so keep following the site and the Twitter account, Facebook. Instagram, and you will see about the new shows and everything.
Yes, and also if you're just listening to BiblioChisme now, or you're catching an older show that's pre-recorded or whatever else, which if you were doing that, you wouldn't hear what I'm saying now. But you can go back and listen to older episodes on Spotify under Icónica Urbana if you've missed our previous shows. So you can take this time to catch up as well.
Yes, a year of shows.
A year of shows. Unbelievable. Well, we should go on a break, like a little break. The podcast hasn't ended yet.
Yes, let's go on a little break.
You're listening to BiblioChisme. Sit down, baby. We're back, everybody. We're still here with our party, celebrating the fireworks. It's wonderful. So we have some people to say hello to.
Yes, we have messages from Karina and from Katza, who were sending messages and congratulating us for the first year on air. And thank you again for everyone who mentioned earlier. And also, of course, thank you to our great producer, Ana Ricardo, and also to Cesar Uribe, who was our first producer for the program.
Thank you for
when we started. We have a beautiful story to tell of our show.
Yes, indeed. It has been incredible. And now, if you hear sneezing, that's my dog.
Okay.
She's very excited about the show.
Bless her. So, I have a book to talk about.
Well, then talk about it.
The book that I want to talk about, I'm going to talk about it because it's July. And in
July...
and in Spanish, the word for the month, it's Julio.
Yeah.
If we say July, it's Junio in Spanish. Julio. July is Julio. June is Junio, and July it's Julio. Which is,
and now our listeners speak Spanish.
Which is the name of an author that I really admire and that I really care about. And I love his work. And many, many, many years ago, before internet ever even existed, a friend of mine who had some crazy ideas said, "Do you know what? We should be reading Julio in Julio. That means reading Julio in July." And I said, yes, that's a great idea. So for many, many years, we've been doing this thing of remembering Julio Cortázar during the month of July, which is great and exhausting and beautiful and
exhausting.
Like a way of there's been years that it's been so much work and so like I'm not in the mood, but it's great to have this like a celebration of an author. And it's really interesting how things go, because when this thing started many, many years ago, I was so into it and I was so happy about it. And then we had emails and emailing lists and we sent messages and then
oh yeah, there were like daily Julio messages.
Yes.
I remember that.
Yes.
Wow, no wonder it was exhausting.
and then we had Facebook, and then we could put Facebook notes every day and looking for different short stories, reading stories, one short story a day. It was like a big reading challenge all over the month.
Yes.
So I want to talk about a book that I really like. It's one of the books that I've read most in my life.
Can I guess? Can I guess?
Yes.
Is it hopscotch?
Yes.
Yay!
Hopscotch is the title in English, Rayuela in Spanish. It was published back in, I can't remember when, maybe 60 years ago. Interesting. So, anyway.
That's something we could look up. But also, we were so obsessed with this book, dear listeners, that we would ask it questions. We would say...
That's exactly what I was going to talk about.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Never mind. Sorry.
No, keep going.
So we would say, what was it? Don Julio?
Don Julio, Don Julio.
Yeah.
And then we would make a question.
We would ask a question. We would flip it open to the first page, and then we would put our finger down somewhere, and then whatever it said was the answer to our question. And there's a line in the book, which we frequently fell on, that said literature does not have the answer.
And we make questions like, shall we go out tonight? Don Julio, shall we go out tonight? And then he would give us an answer, very cryptic answer, like you would go through
the dungeon of an abyss.
Yes, and then
next to a lady smoking cigarettes.
Well, we should not. And sometimes it would give very strange or very direct answers. And it was so beautiful to have a book that we could play with, that we could take into consideration for important decisions, and that we would take it to different traveling places, and like make the book part of the daily life of a group of people. I think that's one of the most fascinating things in that book, because it also talks about a group of people that get together in Paris and a group of people that get together in Buenos Aires. They have different stories in both of the cities. They like each other very much as a group of friends, but then they have differences as in any group of friends, and then stop seeing each other, or they see each other but not with someone of the group, and they have secrets or conversations, side conversations, which is very, besides the affair parts, it's very common in any group of people.
Yeah. Even the affair parts.
Yeah, the affair parts too.
So the anniversary of the publishing was last week. It was published June 28th, 1963. So next year will be...
the 60 years.
60? Yeah, 60. I'm like, what is math? Yeah, 60 years next year.
There's an edition in Spanish of the 50-year anniversary that it's just beautiful, and it's an amazing thing that it exists, because it has critical essays on Rayuela, and what that novel meant for Latin American novels and for Latin American literature. And it was a very, very important book in the literature world, in the Latin American way of understanding literature. But also, I would say that it's a very important book for young people. If it arrives at the right time, it can provide a lot of
very
answers.
Exciting.
And a lot of
questions.
Things. Yes, a lot of questions.
It's very okay. So readers, this is not a simple book. Like, as the name.
It is or not?
Oh my gosh. It is not a simple book, my friends. It is.
It depends.
It's not. It can be simple in the Buddhist sense, but like it's not simple at all. And like the title suggests, like it goes all over the place. You're back and forth. You don't know who's talking. Something weird happens. It's a poem. Then you're back to wherever you are. It skips around a lot. So when you're like exploring literature and diving into the ponds of the unknown in that way, that's so exciting. When you're like everything is significant, it's beautiful. But if you want to open a book, understand what it means, read through, have the perfect plot points, that's not how this book works at all. And it's one of the reasons it was, well, yes. It could be any book you want it to be, because you can read it in order or you can read it out of order. And it's still kind of confusing either way you do it.
The author suggests that you start by chapter 73, which I think it's great. Like just the game of it, the pleasure of. I would suggest that you start by the middle of the book, like in the middle of nowhere. You know nothing, and it has an affirmation. That chapter begins with an affirmation. Yes, comma, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, what the fuck? Yes, to what? But then you can start the book by chapter 1 and read all the chapters until chapter 56. And you will enjoy a simple story, very linear, that things happen day by day.
Kind of, yeah, kind of. It was published in English the first time in 1966, so 3 years later. So the English edition is definitely available as well.
Yep. And also, Julio Cortázar was an amazing writer of short stories. So if you want to try his short stories, besides going through this big book, it's also really interesting. He was an amazing author. He was very close friend of Cristina Peri Rossi,
who I also love.
And he was a very close friend of Argentinian poet Alejandra Pizarnik. And he was an amazing person. He had a very important voice, and he was so political in his novels and in his writing. He wrote poetry, and we like him very much. That's why we read Julio in July. In English has no catch.
We read Julio in July.
Yeah.
We need to come up with people for the other months.
Yep. A Bolaño lo leemos todo el año.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
So.
All right. Well, let's go on a little break, and then I'll come back with my book surprise.
Let's go. You're listening to BiblioChisme.
And we are back.
Yes, we are.
Okay, so I don't know if you remember this. I hope you do, because it's only been a year. But when we started the show, we would talk about a lot of books each. And it's complicated because, like, we like to talk. So it was very hard to keep the show in the parameters of our timeline. So we ended up narrowing it down to one book per person. But I decided today, just to reminisce, to do 3 books.
Well, dear listeners, I normally used to talk about one book, but then part of the BiblioChisme team, like, she would love to talk about 6 or 7 books in a row.
Okay, so I'm the problem, is what we're saying. That's okay. So I have 3 books that I read this weekend that were just delightful all in their own ways, and I just wanted to let you know about it. The first one is called All of This Is For You, A Little Book of Kindness. This started, Ruby Jones is an illustrator, and she did a work of illustration that was just somebody hugging somebody else after terrorist attacks in Australia that against Muslims, and it said, "This is your home, and it should have been safe." And it's just two people hugging. And then after that, people like responded like, "This is very beautiful to show kindness," blah blah blah. So not blah blah blah, like it's not important, but just that's what happened. And then she kept drawing these acts of kindness. So this book is just really simple. I read it like in an hour. It's a bunch of images that are very tender and kind, and just like a bunch of kind things about you to read. So if you want to like have a little tiny pick me up, or if you want to read something to make you feel better, there's pages that are just hearts or flowers or something just joyful. And I think it could feel like a little cheesy at times, but if you let yourself fall into the cheesiness, which I love, in some cases, it's also very helpful. We all have those moments that are hard, right?
It's also very important to have those moments of cheesiness and just stop and smell the flowers.
Yeah, they like affirm kind of your humanity in some ways, and a lot about like taking care of others and taking care of yourself and taking care of others, giving kindness and grace to yourself and to those around you. So I thought it was beautiful, and yeah, I just love it. So there was that one. Then today I read one called Last Night's Reading, Illustrated Encounters with Extraordinary Authors, of which I just kept sending you pictures all day. It's by Kate Gavino. And so this author would just go to author readings all over New York City and just sketch like there's a page where she remembers what shoes different authors were wearing. It's just their shoes. And she just makes little quotes and images of them, and also something I read in an hour or less. But it was just beautiful to just see these incredible messages from different writers and just these impressions and what it means when you go to a writing event, like very much getting you into that perspective and idea of you come here for because you care about the writer, you come here for community, you come here because you care about books, all these things and how that feels in that moment. So that one was incredible. And then the last one, these are all graphic novels, by the way.
And it talks about a very important moment in the book life, book presentations and book readings, and the possibility of approaching an author as an audience, as a reader.
I had a professor. His name was Professor Plum, and he was a creative writing teacher. And there's so many things he said to me that I still think about. But one of them was always go up to the writer and say thank you if they moved you in any way. Always. No matter how scared you are or if they don't respond, it's important that they know that what they did mattered.
Yeah.
And so I always do it, and sometimes it's weird, but I always do it. And that is something where she talks about how writing is such a like interior lonely thing, and this is where it moves outward. And honestly, like it brings books to life in a way to have the authors read from them. Like there's been many a times that I've been somewhere and at an author reading for something that I would have never picked up on my own. And then I'm just like, oh, I need this book. Like I get so in love with the book just based on what the writer said. So I think it's incredible.
Yay.
Yay. Last one.
Do you know, a little pause. I once went to a reading by Juan Gelman, the Argentinian poet that I love. And so I was freaking out because he was one of my like heroes, literature. So I wanted to have a book signed by him. So I asked him if he could sign my book. He did, and I said, "Thank you for poetry." And he was very serious, and he looked at me and he said, "Oh no, poetry is it's by everyone, not by me." And I was like, "Oh," all shaky, and my legs were shaking like for a lot of time, and my hands.
That was the perfect answer.
Yeah, I closed the post. Sorry.
Well, it made me think. I've had a lot of like author run-ins, and they've been almost all great. But one of them that I was so impressed was Julia Alvarez, because she talked to every person in the room, like, and not just like, "Oh, hey, I'm so glad you like the book, here you go." She would have conversations with me, like, "Where are you from? Oh my goodness, my niece went there." Like, she would just have she would hug you, and like, she was creating true community with every single person. It took forever because that's how she did it, and it was just so beautiful and kind, and she speaks like her writing. And so it's like you're sitting there reading magic, but you're just listening to her talk. It was incredible. Okay,
that's great.
Last book. And this was my favorite of this weekend, and it's the least pick me up one. But it was so well done, and it made me laugh so much. It's called Wired Up Wrong by Rachel Smith, and it's about living with depression and anxiety. And she envisions her depression as these two dogs. And one of them is a big, huge, cuddly dog. And one of them is this tiny, mean dog. I mean, they're both mean. But
that's like, a Chihuahua, of course.
No, it's not a Chihuahua. It's not tiny, tiny. It's like medium. But the other dog is so big that she lays down in the middle of him, you know? And they just tell her negative things about herself all the time, and that she can't, and that everyone hates her. And it's like all the terrible thoughts that depression and anxiety give you as a dog, which makes me sad because dogs wouldn't talk to you that way. But but it's an incredible work, and it showed so brilliantly how depression talks to you, and it made me laugh. She's like so witty, and just the way she put it out, like 5 stars. I just absolutely loved her sense of humor and her vulnerability, and being able to just show how this works. Because I think for people who don't experience depression and anxiety, it can be hard to understand, like, why don't you just like cheer up? Like, it doesn't work that way. So she puts some of those things too, about things people tell her and how it doesn't work. Like, that's not how things work. And then she shows, like, when she goes to the therapist and what that means to her, and what, like, while you're at the therapist, talking to the therapist, the depression's still there, sending you little messages. And so it just was brilliant.
I also think that I've said this more than once with certain books that you talked about during this year, but I think that it's a very important thing to talk about that.
Yeah.
Those difficult topics, it's not a thing that you can cheer up. Like, here in Mexico, they would say échale ganas.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, if you just put yourself into it, you will make it. And it's not just like that. Like,
it's so funny that you said that, because I'm reading another book called Breathe and Count Back from 10. Now I talked about 4, by Natalia Sylvester, and that one's not a graphic novel, but it's about like this young girl who has a disability, and her parents are immigrants, and like she's a teenager, and like how she's dealing with everything. She specifically talks about those things that they say, échale ganas. She's like, as if I could just be like, okay, I'm fixed, when I'm upset, or when your feelings And she talks a lot about those things that, like, I think in Latin American culture, there's all these little sayings about just like, it's okay, it's going to be fine. And it's made in a positive way. Like, the person's trying to make you feel better by telling you it's going to be okay, but what they're doing is denying you the opportunity to feel what you're feeling.
Yeah. And it's not understanding that the problem is not like it's not a thing that you could wish for.
I mean, it is a thing that you could wish for, but you can't make it happen just because you want it. Yeah.
You explain it better than me.
You can wish for it all you want, but it's not just going to show up. So, it's
like when you say "don't worry" to someone that's worrying.
Anxious.
No te preocupes.
Yeah. And it's hard. It's tempting to say that. Like, it's fine. Don't worry. Be happy.
Like you want to pamper, but it's not. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah. So.
And it's very important that you mentioned that in July that it's Disability Awareness Month.
Yeah.
So, which I just learned that it exists.
It's not like one of the months that is promoted as much. And then there are also like months that focus on specific disabilities too. So
yeah, but I think that it's very important. Like, not all disabilities are you cannot see all of them.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's very important to have those conversations that are complicated and uncomfortable.
Well, and I think that taking this out of like the context of hiding and shame makes people see that they're not alone in how they see the world sometimes, because it's not what we talk about because it doesn't feel good. Yep. So that's why I think it's so brilliant when especially an artist can manifest, like visualize what this looks like as well as talk about what it feels like.
Yep. Anyway, we should go.
Well, what about our favorite thing?
Oh, favorite thing, it's we have a year of celebration. I'm talking about books. My favorite thing is that I had an amazing walk this evening. The sky was beautiful and beautiful clouds, and I bought a toy for the dog of the house.
Yay.
And she was so happy when she saw her new toy, and she was running around.
Aw, that's so sweet. My happy thing is Ted Lasso. Speaking of cheesiness, all my friends kept telling me I needed to watch this show. I finally started watching it. It's like, it starts out like very saccharine and just like very positive and this and the other. It gets deeper, but like I just love the goodness of it. It's just good, you know, like people caring about each other and being sweet and kind. And it's wonderful. So that's my favorite thing right now, other than our year of an amazing show.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for everyone for listening, and thank you for being here, for having the idea of a BiblioChisme.
Thank you. Have a wonderful month, and we'll see you in August.
Happy reading.
Happy reading. BiblioChisme is a podcast about creating conversation around reading, satisfying curiosities we didn't know we had, and sharing this dialogue with others, preferably with good coffee, tea, and snacks.